Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
Bounce is back.
Locked into hour 2 of RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580. A little bit of that good old 70s love, the Spinners. Shout out to Fahima for bringing the Spinners into our atmosphere tonight. As I said, they are 2023 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees. And listen, I remember the time when you're a little kid hearing those songs. Like, whenever I hear music like that, it reminds me of Cooley High and those type of films, you know, from the 70s, where they would have the break and the falsetto singer with sometimes the bass, but a lot of times the falsetto would just start talking to you and stuff like that. Ah, romance. Do we have that anymore? Well, maybe. You got to discuss it first. And make sure there's a prenup. Shout out to Ben Frank in the chat. He says he loves the Spinners. You know, he appreciates the playlist. Shout out to Andy. He always gets us right. That is a theme. You gotta do it. You are locked in to the show that brings you all the trending topics across entertainment, sports, lifestyle, and culture. I, of course, am your host, Jill Munroe. And in hour 2, listen, we're going to get into the comments from one of the co-creators of Rolling Stone magazine. He says that for him, black musicians and female musicians do not articulate to the level of masters. We'll get into those comments. We're also going to talk a little Halle Berry and Drake. Is Drake just a troll? Is he just thinking of more creative ways to keep you talking about his projects, him and his music, from a completely obnoxious standpoint? I don't know. We'll get into a little bit of that. We're going to talk about Byron Allen. He's trying to buy another media company. He doesn't stop. Football teams, media companies, whatever. He's trying to make it happen. We're going to get into that. And we're also going to talk about the deaths of two murders here in the deaths of two murders. Let me roll that back. The deaths of two models here in Los Angeles. And one is definitely being called a homicide. The other one, we're not so sure. And we're just going to give you that information just so that it's out there, because this involves two young black women. And we know that statistically speaking, when it involves black women, these crimes don't tend to get solved, and they kind of tend to, fade into the background. So we're going to talk about that. And if there is time, we're going to get into Stephen A. Smith and his drama with Terrell Owens. And of course, we got to talk about Deion Sanders and all that is. I'm telling you right now, there is still room. Hop on this Colorado Buffaloes bandwagon. Get your backpack. get your stuff ready, and hop on. Andy has some doubts about next weekend, but what I will say is these last 3 weeks, they have been eventful. $1.2 million to Deion's sunglass line. Listen, I will say, though, that on the opposite end of that, Colorado State, nobody was talking about them. So, Jay, what is Norvell? Is that the Norvell? Excuse me, Jay Norvell. He did his thing in drawing some attention to his program. And they did come out looking like they were prepared to at least compete with the stuff that they talked. Did they have a bounty on the player? I don't know, but a lacerated liver is a very, 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 crazy injury. And he was out there looking like, Heisman maybe had his name on it. I don't know. There was a lot happening. There's a lot of moving pieces with the atmosphere, the culture changer that is Deion. What I will say is, of course, this is going to be a thing now at the home games. What celebrities were there? Colorado has now become what? Hollywood Mountain High? I don't know. Something like that. But the celebs are there. They're rolling in on their private jets. They are, sideline sign. I saw Kawhi out there. Come on now. We don't see Kawhi at Clipper games, but we see Kawhi in Colorado. He was right there. I heard that. Master P, he was in the locker room too. Key Glock. The Rock. I'll tell you what. I don't know if you've seen, we're going to play some of Deion's speech and where he had it's his grandmother, right? Yeah. Speak on the mic because he felt that Jay was speaking disrespectfully and implying that Deion didn't have any home training with his comments. So he bought his grandma to set that record straight. I mean, let me tell you what. Deion lines it up, baby. He has it set up. Got your grandma to come in there and lay it down. Like, let me explain this to you. It's pretty amazing to watch. But The Rock, I bet you he hasn't stepped into that much black culture in a very, very long time. He looked a little uncomfortable. And I love Dwayne Johnson. Don't get me wrong. But he was standing back there kind of looking like, yo, how long before it's time for me to depart the premises? You know what I'm saying? Like, how long is it before I need to move out of this situation, before the rollies start flashing again and whatever? I'm just saying, he also seemed to be on a tour this weekend. Were you excited when he showed up at the event? I don't want to say the names wrong. I know it's one. I don't know. It's not WrestleMania, but it was
SmackDown.
Okay. All right. See, I don't want to confuse them. I know that they have special distinctions and they mean different things. So
SmackDown is on Fridays. Monday Night Raw is on Mondays. NXT is on Tuesdays for any wrestling fans out there.
So boom, there you go. Well, The Rock showed up. He hadn't been around in forever.
And I'm actually not surprised, right? So SmackDown was in Denver, so it made sense for Pat McAfee and The Rock to come down and whatnot. But I think another reason why he did show up is because of the SAG strike or whatnot. You know what I'm saying? There's no work for him to do. Same thing with John Cena. John Cena's back too. So
yeah, go ahead and make them coins. Those people are going to forever love you, and you could come through, get your little shine off, and then go home. Catch some good games, and that's what it is, right? Listen, we are going to, when we come forward, listen to Deion's speech and his grandma and what they had to say. And do you think, I don't, but I'm just going to pose this question. Is Deion going too far? Because we know they're going to lose a game or two, but they are already a 2-time success over what they did last season. We know Deion took a very hard line. He had, 50 players hit the transfer portal when he hit them with his speech. But so far, it is paying off. But do you think that he's doing a little too much? I'm just asking. I don't think so. I'm putting it out there. We'll get into all of that and more when we come forward. You're locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe.
RSVP with Jill Munroe is your go-to show for staying in the know. More engaging conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to K-Drip, where we play all the best classic water-wasting hits like Watering Your Lawn During the Hottest Time of the Day and Leaky Faucets. They're tunes from another time because now that we face a hotter, drier future, every drop counts. Despite an extremely wet winter, keep using less water, fixing leaks, and reusing indoor water for your garden. Visit SaveOurWater.com for more ways to conserve. Up next, brushing your teeth with the water on. K-Drip.
1 in 4 Americans today are living with a disability. I'm one of them. People with disabilities are extremely talented, resilient problem solvers that have so much to offer. And we've got a trusted ally on our side, an organization we can rely on, Easter Seals. Easter Seals is leading the way to full equity, inclusion, and access to healthcare, employment, and education for people with disabilities, families, and communities. That's my Easter Seals. Make it yours.
Learn more and get involved at easterseals.com.
KBLA Talk 1580 stands for Unity and Healing. African Focus Incorporated is a nonprofit organization based in California that focuses on the growth and well-being of Africans all around the world. Their mission is to promote the well-being of people of African descent through knowledge and appreciation of one another by building a bridge of love and understanding. African Focus Incorporated strives for cultural, educational, and economic growth. They're the organization behind the African Family Induction Ceremony, African Goodwill Awards, African Focus Trailblazer Tours, African Dance Competition, and Showcase Los Angeles, Family Day, Good News Windows Microfinance Project, and more. To volunteer, travel with African Focus, or to attend one of their community building events, please call 310-676-7730. That's 310-676-7300. Or visit AfricanFocus.org. This is a diaspora-wide community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Your floors can go from clean to dirty fast. From juice spills, whoops, to muddy paw prints, to little sticky finger marks. Good thing your Swiffer WetJet works fast too. Swiffer WetJet easily cleans everyday messes as quick as they happen. The next mess is right around the corner. So grab your Swiffer WetJet and just spray, push, all clean.
Some people won't give you the real talk on drugs, but it's time we know the facts. Fentanyl is killing people. It's a powerful opioid, often made illegally and commonly mixed with illicit drugs. It can even be pressed into counterfeit pills that resemble prescription medications. Just 2 milligrams, about the size of a few grains of sand, can potentially be lethal. This isn't an ad to scare you, but it is an ad to make you think twice. Get the facts. Go to realdealonfentanyl.com. This message is brought to you by the Ad Council.
Hey, keeping you informed, entertained, and always ahead of the curve. This is RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580. So, I told you, we're going to hear Deion. I'm going to be honest. On Mondays, after college football, and Deion does his 1-2 with whatever, we're going to talk about it. I mean, Shador said he was in Brady mode, right? And Tom Brady gave him the little icy face. He said he talks to Tom after every game. That's a flex. He said Tom is guiding him and stepping out. You got your dad, Deion, one of the greatest of all time, 2 sports figures. He's coaching you and giving you advice. And then you have one of the greatest QBs ever also on speed dial talking to you after every game. Andy?
I love Shador Sanders. I love this cat. I love this young man. I just be just a little bit humble. Just a little.
You want to pull him back just a little bit?
Just a little bit, because these next 2 weeks, these next 2 weeks, to me, are the ultimate test. And if you can win one out of the two, talk your mess.
What did you think about the cameraman asking him to flash the rollie? Did you think that was too much? Do you think that is, because obviously we had a little tussle, little spirited greetings between the two teams. Do you think it's encouraging, more violence?
Part of me doesn't even think that Shedeur would be that violent. I think there's a part of him that feels like we have all these cameras watching or whatnot. He won't be, but it's generally probably not going to be him. It's going to be somebody else trying to prove their worth and trying to, be a part of the moment, right? I guess that's part of the game. As long as Shedeur doesn't do anything stupid, which I don't think he would, even though it seems like he wants to smoke, especially even after the game. He's still right by his pops when the other coach came through. He flexed his rollie again twice.
Bling, twinkle, shine. I really don't. The thing is, I really feel like Shedeur has it. Like, when you see him speak to the media, he handles it well. He gives you that bravado that you like, but also fair and accurate assessment of what has happened as far as the field and the game and what's going on. We know he's putting in the work. We know he's getting those snaps off. So it is just a very interesting thing to watch as the money keeps running up, those tickets keep running up, the ratings keep running up. He's a phenomenon as far as his dad is.
I wonder if there's like a level of protection on him, because I don't want. He's maybe a junior or a sophomore?
Think so. Because he didn't.
That
was his first year, right?
Last year was his first year?
No. Was it Shiloh's first year? They were at Jackson State for 2 years. Shiloh is the older one. No, Shiloh's younger. Okay, right? I might be getting it mixed up. I'm sorry. I've confused myself now.
Me too.
All I know is Shedeur got it.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see what he does for the rest of this season and what happens there afterwards.
Absolutely.
But we're going to get into Deion and his grandmother's comments, and then we're going to get into some comments Deion made about his children and ranking them. So.
I get upset a lot. Unless they talk about y'all, or they talk about my mom. See, back where I come from, when somebody says something about your mom, you put 1 foot back. You was ready to get down. He didn't directly say something about my mama, but he alluded to the fact that his mama raised him, and my mama didn't raise me right.
I raised him right. If you have to kick ass, kick ass.
Granny got it lit up in there. She's ready. So listen, Deion has these kids functioning on another level. They are together. You can see their confidence level from Shedeur on down as their chests are, puffing up with each win. I think that they showed a lot of grit in Saturday's game, coming back in that overtime. They could have panicked. They could have folded. They did not. And they made a very impressive win. So we know Deion is a good father to all of his kids. We know that. He's always talked about his children, always lifted them up. And, it is interesting, though, because Deion says that he's a truth teller, that he doesn't hold back. And he says things that people are often uncomfortable with or that they don't want to say out loud. Well, Deion shared that he definitely ranks his kids, and who is the favorite at the time depends on a lot of factors. And so he talked about where they currently rank after this game. And I want to know your thoughts about that. Do you have a favorite child? Or if you're a parent, do you favorite one child over the other? Are you open about that favoritism? Do you share that stuff? I don't know. Well, we're going to hear what Deion had to say about his favorites in just maybe not. Maybe we're going to hear about it in a second. But anyway, so listen, it's a whole effect. It's going around. And yeah. Can we hear Dion about the favorites?
He is moving up. He is moving on up like the Jeffersons. But Shador is straight up balling too. Bossy came in and gave me the biggest hug and kiss and appreciation for Daddy that she could ever give me at the end of the game. So that was great. And Junior's been balling. What he does on social media is fascinating. So it's tough. My kids' rankings are tough. It's a serious run right now. It really is. It's a serious run right now. I'm the only one that's honest about ranking my kids. You guys act like you love all of them the same, and you don't. I don't know why y'all act like that.
Do you think that is a fair thing to do to your kids, to put them out there like the love is conditional? He said right now Shiloh's in the lead, and that is because of the 2 interceptions that he had on Saturday. So, good for him getting some spotlight. I do appreciate that because I feel like as of late, Shador has been completely overshadowing them. It must be hard. It must be hard. Ben Frank in the chat says, I can't rank my kids. Forensic Accountant says, look up Dion, Tim Carver, and Dion's mama. Ooh, there must be a story there that I'm unaware of. And Pretty Brown Mimi says, Deion Sanders has been that guy since his FSU college days, for sure. And apparently his sons got it from their daddy. Absolutely. I saw a video that Deion put up. There's a photo of he and Emmitt Smith for their college days where they were playing against each other. And Deion was talking about it looks like I went right through his chest, but really the chains got stuck. And so the picture just looks like a great rivalry moment, and it's highlighted, but the actuality behind the story is a little bit funny. Let's see. Forensic Accountant says, how can he leave in the playoffs and go play in a football game? He asked the way that I looked at that. That is just flat wrong. His criticism apparently rankled. This must be when Deion was splitting his time between the MLB and, what was it, the Atlanta Braves? Yep. And was he with the Cowboys when he was doing that? Or was he with, I can't remember what NFL team he was with, but I know he's with the Braves playing, So shout out to Deion. Listen, I would not want to know. I think kids know if their parents rank them, but I don't know if I would want my parents saying it on the radio or on TV. Like, yeah, they're in 3rd place this week. Maybe they'll improve. Seems a little mean. Anyway, from one mogul to the next, Byron Allen, he wants to buy ABC. So we know that Disney, the head of Disney, Bob Iger, has been toying with selling off different assets under the Disney umbrella. There was talks of selling off ESPN. We know that there is a chance that they could sell their stake in Hulu. And now comes word that they are considering looking at just taking, seeing what's out there for ABC. So Byron Allen put in a bid of $10 billion to acquire ABC and the other channels from Disney's linear broadcast agreement, right? That's according to a report from Bloomberg. So this offer comes, while Disney is also in preliminary talks with a group called Nextel. Lord, did I take it back to the chirp? Did you have a chirp phone? Did you have a Nextel? Conversations all out loud as you chirp each other. Anyway, Nexstar Media Group, and they are also interested in purchasing that. The $10 billion bid would also include FX and National Geographic. And listen, Byron Allen is can't stop, won't stop. He's like beyond Diddy. He already has the Weather Channel, Pets TV, bunch of other things. He owns the Grio Network, and he wants to add to it. Now, the question you have to ask is, what happens with the programming? What happens if it is sold? New people in charge means new ideas, new emphasis on what's important, what area of programming you want to spend those dollars on. If you doubt that those changes aren't impactful, just look what's happening with HBO and their new head, David Zaslav, I believe is his last name. He has a particular interest in the Discovery Plus shows. That was his side. He thinks that those are of more value and they're certainly cheaper to produce. So he doesn't have the same attachments to scripted content that some others do. So you have to go through those things. We'll see what happens. I mean, Byron is never discouraged. Lost out on the Commanders, keep it moving. Lost out on BET and those things, keep it moving. Now, ABC, you're up next. Maybe. I don't know. Here's my question for you, and this is serious. Do you check out any of Byron Allen's programming? Do you watch any of the shows? Are you locked in? Are you interested? Is it something that you want to look at? Atlanta Falcons. So he was playing for NFL for the Falcons. What baseball team was he? He was playing for the Braves and the Falcons at that time. Okay. That's when he was doing his big one too. Well, all right. That makes sense. Okay. So that's how he could go across town to the other stadium and make it happen. Well, anyway, Deion does not play about his mom. I'm sure most men don't. And the idea that Deion doesn't have any home training, really, really bad. But like I said, Jay will take that villain hat on and steal a little bit of shine that they did. And, maybe a couple of his players got some light out there. Forensic accountant, shout out to you. I remember Byron Allen on Real People. That's when I first heard of him. It was him, Kathy somebody or whatever. And as a matter of fact, I believe, at least here in Los Angeles, it used to come on ABC. And I remember when he was doing his show, The Entertainers, late night, and I remember his comedy routine. But, look at him now, multimedia mogul in the mix. Well, when we come forward, we're going to get into the story about the Rolling Stone editor. He's not just an editor. He's actually one of the co-creators, one of the founders of Rolling Stone. He is also, this is a big one of the founders of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So we're going to talk about his comments about Black and female artists. We're going to get into that and what he had to say, and then what he had to not say, and where we're at now, of course. We're also going to, if we can, get into this Stephen A. Smith story. He and Terrell Owens are back and forth. And it's getting pretty serious. And there were accusations of lawsuits thrown around and exposure. So we're going to talk about all of that. And, of course, we are going to talk about those two models in downtown LA. And Tyler Perry has a message for Black women. And I don't think I'm completely on board with the message. We're going to get into that. All of that and more. You're locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, news and sports is up next.
Darling, you'll always be the only one for me. Heaven made you specially.
Trending topics and the hottest happenings. You're listening to RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Doug Davis with the latest from the Black Information Network. There are some upcoming court dates for the 5 former Memphis police officers charged with the beating death of Tyree Nichols following a traffic stop. Lawyers for 3 of the men told a judge their clients weren't present for the initial traffic stop, so they should be tried separately. A judge is expected to make a decision on October 5th. Trial is set for November 6th. There's a Black candidate entering the race to become Miami-Dade County's next sheriff. African-American Police Major John Barrow recently threw his name in the hat. Barrow joined the Miami-Dade Police Department in 2007 and was promoted to major about 2 years ago. A new report says the Biden administration is separating families at the border. NBC News says Border Patrol agents temporarily separated families this summer and could still be using the practice during the current surge. The report says overcrowding led to the separation this summer. Make it a great one. That's the latest. I'm Doug Davis from the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Water. All of life depends on it. So, for the love of water, California, everyone has a part to play when it comes to reducing water waste. Let's make conservation a way of life. Find ways to conserve at saveourwater.com.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest bar,
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
Ew, gotta get rid of this old Backstreet Boys t-shirt.
Tell me why.
Because it stinks, boys.
Tell me why.
I've washed it so many times, but the odor won't come out.
Tell me why.
No, you tell me why I can't get rid of this odor.
Have you tried new Downy Rinse and Refresh? It doesn't just cover up odors, it helps remove them.
Wow, it worked, guys.
Yeah.
Downy Rinse and Refresh removes more odor in one wash than the leading value detergent in 3 washes. Find it wherever you buy laundry products.
Meet Joe A, Joe B, and Joe C.
What's up?
3 everyday Joes perfecting their banking with Chase. Joe A is locking his lost debit card with the Chase mobile app. Joe B is cruising toward his new ride with AutoSave. And Joe C's Chase banker is helping him budget to go back to school. Tools that help protect. Support for what's next. One bank that puts you in control. Visit chase.com/checking. Chase. Make more of what's yours.
Chase mobile app is available for select mobile devices. Messaging and data rates may apply. JP Morgan Chase Bank, N.A. member FDIC.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
Turning my pain into purpose is pretty much what I have done to start this foundation.
In August 2020, after the death of George Floyd, Bridget Floyd and other family members established the George Floyd Memorial Foundation in support of the Black community.
It's going to take more than just us as a foundation. It's going to take the community, the world, to make a change.
Fight for racial justice for the Black community. Learn how at lovehasnolabels.com. Brought to you by Love Has No Labels and the Ad Council.
1 in 4 Americans today are living with a disability. I'm one of them. People with disabilities are extremely talented, resilient problem solvers that have so much to offer. And we've got a trusted ally on our side, an organization we can rely on, Easter Seals. Easter Seals is leading the way to full equity, inclusion, and access to healthcare, employment, and education for people with disabilities, families, and communities. That's my Easter Seals. Make it yours.
Learn more and get involved at easterseals.com.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 joins you in standing for education as a right, not a privilege. Charles R. Drew University of Medicine and Science is a private, non-profit, community-founded, student-centered university committed to cultivating diverse health profession leaders who are dedicated to social justice and health equity for underserved populations. CDU does this through outstanding education, clinical service, and community engagement. Recently, Charles Drew University made history by opening only the 5th medical school at an historically Black university. Congratulations, South LA, and congratulations to the Dean of the medical school, Dr. Deborah Protho-Stith. CDU is now training doctors and providing $90 million in annual economic benefit to Watts and surrounding neighborhoods. To apply for medical school, get more information, or sign your child up for the Junior Doctors Saturday School program, visit cdrewu.edu. That's cdrewu.edu. At KBLA, we are dedicated to equity in education and ending healthcare apartheid. And we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. Curating the most compelling stories and delivering them straight to your ears. You're listening to RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's a thin line between love and hate. It's a thin line between love and hate. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm just getting in.
Men don't love like this anymore.
I knock on the door.
I said men don't love like this anymore.
She opened up the door.
That passion.
Never once do she say where.
Although showing up at a woman's house at 5 o'clock in the morning right now, I don't know. It's a different time. And she definitely, well, she might. Never mind. Never mind. I'm just going to skip. We're just going to skip. You are locked in to RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580. Andy dropping us off with the 70s oldies. You know, that romance when men begged.
I was about to be like, did you just have a flashback just now? Like,
No,
okay.
no. I was just trying to make sure to keep it radio friendly. Do you know what I'm saying?
You feeling some kind of way.
No. What was the next line that was coming up? She says, she opens the door. She says, "Are you hungry? Did you eat yet?" Right? But some female rapper has flipped that line. And so I was going to go there. But it's a family situation. So we weren't going to go there.
We got like 28 minutes before we get to the third hour. Maybe we could hear more.
I mean, there is no more. She said.
Who's the rapper you talking about?
Who said it? She was like, she, repurposed the line. Is you hungry? Did you eat yet?
Nikki, Megan.
I don't know. I don't remember. Okay. It was a while ago. I can't remember. What song was it?
Google it real quick.
But here's the thing, though. We don't got to know the song to know where I was going to take it. I was going to say that women aren't greeting you at the door at 5 a.m. concerned if you've eaten and if you were hungry. But under a certain circumstance, maybe they would. But I wasn't talking about a meal. I was talking about what the female rapper was talking about. You see? Anyway, you're locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580. Boy, the chat is bubbling. There's a lot happening there. Listen. The 70s was a different time. Let's bring back romance. Let's bring back, passion. Let's bring back men pouring out their heart to young ladies. We miss that.
We don't have patience anymore. We want it right now.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we're just going to be straightforward, like T-Fly.
I mean, did you say like T-Fly?
Like T-Fly.
What do you mean?
You know some of his songs.
But what song are you talking about? What do you mean?
This. I'm going to just say this.
This. Listen, what I am going to say, forensic accountant, listen, you got a lot going on. You're lit in that chat. You have some commentary in there as well. Let's talk about Rolling Stone. Let's get on that, right? So Rolling Stone is an institution of rock and roll. It's been around for a long time. People put a lot of value at one point or another into being on the cover of it. We know Janet Jackson recently just celebrated what I think is maybe the 30th anniversary of the famous Rolling Stone cover with her breasts covered in the curly hair, black and white. We know Britney Spears has had some classic covers, as have had a lot of people. It's what is considered one of sort of the rock and roll Bibles, right? And let's not kid ourselves. We know that Black people started rock and roll. At any rate, the founder of Rolling Stone, he has a new book out, and it's about some of the best musicians of all time, and the title of it is Masters. He was asked by the New York Times why he only focused on white male artists, and he said that Black and female artists just don't articulate at the level of white men. I'm going to tell you that I absolutely do not understand what that means. The book Masters, it compiles interviews with 7 musicians who he deems are masters. They're all white men. So Bono, Bob Dylan, Jerry Garcia, Mick Jagger, John Lennon, Bruce Springsteen, and Pete Townsend. So he justified the lack of diversity by arguing that black and female artists don't articulate at that level. He said that he's not a philosopher. He talked about Joni Mitchell, for example. He said she was not a philosopher of rock and roll. She didn't, in his mind, meet that test. Not by her work, not by the other interviews she did. And the people that he felt he interviewed were the kind of philosophers that represented rock. So he said that when you use a word like masters, it's probably his fault because it has a broad meaning. And then these are who he said as a maybe, as far as black artists go. Maybe Marvin Gaye. Maybe Curtis Mayfield. Maybe. So, listen. You have to think about the fact that this person is the creator. These are the people that were gatekeeping. And when you think about the people that were behind the scenes, sending people up for awards, these covers, the type of access, because let's be clear, back in the 80s and 90s, if a black act crossed over, it kind of canceled them out with their black audience. Unless, of course, you were kind of Michael Jackson or Prince. But you either had to be one or the other. And your approach, whichever one you stuck to, if you stuck to your roots and you were a soul-trained artist, you were pretty much a soul-trained artist. There's some that could go and do both, but not really. You know? Not really. And so when you hear someone like this comfortably say that in 2023, you just wonder what the conversations they were having back in the day was. And it's not a small leap of faith to say that you understand why so much of our music was overlooked, or why the accolades didn't always add up to what we felt they should be for some of our artists that maybe teetered on the edge. Well, since then, of course, he's apologized. I don't really know how you apologize, how you backtrack. You said what you said. All of a sudden, now they are masters. But he's backtracked, and he has been removed from his seat on the board of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Now, this is significant, not just because it's obviously a seat on the board of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but he is actually one of the founders of this situation. So his opinion, free-flowing, cost him dearly. All right, we mentioned that there are 2 murders that have taken place in downtown, 2 deaths that have taken place in downtown LA from 2 young black women. One is Melissa Moore, 31. She died on September 12th last week. And Nicole Coates, also 31, died on September 10th. So Mooney's death is being investigated as a murder. According to the LAPD and the LA County Department of Medical Examiner and Coroner, they say that Coates' death is not being considered a homicide, and it is unknown if there is a connection between how the 2 women died. Both families are speaking out. They want answers. They want to understand what took place. One of the women went out for a date and wasn't seen afterwards. So there are some suspicious circumstances to both. When we come forward, we'll get into a little bit more of that conversation. We will also discuss Tyler Perry and what he thinks black women need to do in order to have successful relationships. And, of course, more trending topics and headlines. You were locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580.
Infusing a sense of fun and entertainment in every episode. You're listening to RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
Have you heard about Lendustry?
Lendistry is a national Black-led small business lender that is headquartered right here in LA. Once you've started your business, Lendistry provides flexible financing options starting at $50,000 to help you access the affordable capital needed to grow. Whether financing is needed to increase working capital, acquire a business, purchase inventory and equipment, or refinance debt, Lendistry has a solution for you. Lending products range from traditional business term loans and non-revolving lines of credit to SBA 7A loans and commercial real estate financing. Lendistry's pre-application process is simple and does not impact your credit score. Visit lendistry.com/KBLA to learn more and to get started with an application right from the website.
This season, your coffee orders are getting warmer, and your outfits are getting cozier. The world keeps changing, and so does COVID-19. That's why this season's COVID-19 shots have been updated. They're one of the best ways to help protect yourself against COVID-19. You can get a COVID-19 shot at the same visit as a flu shot if you're due for both, as recommended by the CDC. Talk to your healthcare provider to learn more and schedule at vaccines.gov. And don't forget to get extra cinnamon spice. Sponsored by Pfizer and BioNTech.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Tired of being locked out of job opportunities and shut down by systemic racism? KBLA stands with you in fighting for the rights of black workers, and we don't black down. The Los Angeles Black Workers Center is a dynamic alliance of workers, organized labor, community-based organizations, clergy, students, and scholars, working collectively to improve the position of the black working class. The LA Black Workers Center takes a comprehensive approach to addressing the black jobs crisis. Their programs promote access to quality jobs, racial equity in hiring and retention, discrimination-free job sites, and they prepare black workers for employment in high-wage, career-track jobs. The Black Workers Center supports workers who need help protecting their rights on the job. They give workers access to quality jobs and remove systemic barriers to employment. To sign up for free career readiness training, get involved in organizing around anti-discrimination, learn about union apprenticeship programs, or sign on to a trade registry, please visit www.lablackworkerscenter.org. That's lablackworkerscenter.org. Together, we can beat the black jobs crisis. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to more captivating conversation on RSVP with Jill Munroe.
You are locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580. We are talking about the creator of Rolling Stone and his comments that black men and female artists do not articulate at the level of white masters. I want to bring up Forensic Accountant in the chat. He mentioned Carole King as someone who is white, but should be considered in that masters category. And I think that's a good one because, listen, the amount of hits that she wrote in the 70s and 80s, just want to mention Natural Woman by Aretha Franklin. That is one of my personal favorites of her, and is notable. Someone like her certainly would have fit the bill. Fahima is bringing up Tina Turner, dubbed the Queen of Rock and Roll. So here's the thing. With Tina, I can understand why maybe someone like her might have been left out. Obviously, performance-wise, Tina was a beast. But I am unclear, and I'm sure someone will let me know, if Tina wrote, if she composed music. I'm unclear on that. Was that just Ike's domain? Did Tina write anything? Even if Ike took it, I'm just unclear on if that was a part of her particular mastery. But performance-wise, showstopper, everything, energy, choreography, clothing, wigs, Tina is definitely a master. We also have a caller on line 1, Kwamel from Gardena. Let me know what's going on with you. Welcome to the show tonight.
Well, I'll be hornswoggled. Yeah, I just got off the 405, and I don't know if a high speed chase will probably end up on Channel 5 or Channel 9 is underway, but yeah, some cat was flying in a Dodge, and I think about 5 black and whites were following. I was like, yo, hold on a second.
Be safe out there, my goodness.
Yeah. I mean, I'm on Rosecrans now, so yeah, I'm back in Gardena now, so I'm good to go. But yeah, I was like, let me go on and click to that real quick. All right, so here's where I think he might have been going. And again, I mean, it sounded quite racist. And coming from back then, I feel like they might have thought that we weren't interesting enough, that we or women weren't interesting enough. Now, here's where I'm going with this, because as an artist myself, I'm a poet, performance poet, been in the beats and rhymes for a long time, coming out of all that. And I have a thing about this that I talk to young artists about. The idea of, as you do your art, you go on the artist adventure. You try different things. You stay open to experience. You do some eccentric stuff. Not saying you got to be weird and crazy, but you go out and expand your mind various ways. And I'm not talking about substances or anything like that, but in the way of how a Gil Scott-Heron would be interesting, a Barry White would be interesting, a Marvin Gaye would be interesting.
But he said Marvin wasn't. He said Marvin wasn't. I mean, not a Jimi Hendrix. Like, here's the thing. Okay, maybe R&B, soul music, that's not your area of expertise. Your ear doesn't hear it, right? For whatever reason.
Okay, now that is a thing I want to pinpoint as well. Let's put a pin on that, because there's such a thing as rockism. Like being racist, there's being rockist, like kind of centering everything about rock. When the word enroll got dropped, it was just rock, and then suddenly it's like just a bunch of white dudes making it. And they tend to center that kind of music, and they tend to think they're somehow more interesting and and are the best teachers of things to people. Where like that Beatles worship starts to come up, or that Doors worship starts to come up, that Led Zeppelin worship, that whole thing. Now, I'm not saying that the Beatles, the Doors, Led Zeppelin didn't have their colors, and Queen, people like that couldn't be fascinating. But that's where I was going about the whole artist adventure thing. That there's so many layers to you because you've gone out and had all these experiences. That makes you this fascinating character that you're suddenly the person that you'd want to read about in Rolling Stone, or you'd want to read about in Vanity Fair or something like that.
Certainly, but to your point, certainly someone like, and I'm sorry for interrupting, Ike and Tina should be considered in that, right? What they did musically, they inspired the Stones, they inspired the Beatles.
I would think so too. I mean, I know there was the thing about the domestic stuff, which probably everybody would run immediately to. Now in the 80s, whole different story. Once, Tina them blew up again, and suddenly it's like, wow, okay, how does she create this whole persona that, is relevant to the younger generation, and, suddenly getting phones picked up like, yo, what's happening? I want to work with you, and let's really make these great colorful records.
But here's the thing. Not even if we're talking about 80s, not even Prince. I think about, and I don't know if you saw this, there was a performance from, I think it was one of these Hall of Fame performances. It was like Prince, I think it was Eric Clapton, and someone else on stage. And Prince was just shredding. What he was doing, the tricks, like amazing. How could you ignore someone like Prince as far as artistry? He played all of those instruments, the arrangements, the groups that birthed from him. Rick James is someone I feel like you could put into that mix. Like, what is he talking about specifically as far as articulate? That's the thing that hung me up. What is your definition of a master, and what makes Bob Dylan and the Rolling Stones more articulate than Marvin Gaye and Curtis Mayfield? From what's going on to the, Midnight Love album, think about all of that.
And that's the coldest thing, like to not give the Stevies of the world. And you mentioned the 80s. I mean, think about it, like all these larger than life just monsters at the time. Michael, Prince, Madonna, Luther Vandross,
But here's the thing: I am purposely
what Quincy Jones' stature was at that point.
Exactly, but here's the thing: I am purposely. But Kwame, I am purposely staying away from more R&B based acts because I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt, and by you I mean Jan, that maybe you aren't connecting with R&B music. Right? We always have to find those bridges and connect over that way, but they don't necessarily have to work back. I'm going to give you that space. But within that, like I said, there's so many artists that could float under the rock and roll umbrella that you just disregard. What is the criteria?
And on top of that, and I'll leave you with this, all of that music traces back to blues origin. So, I mean, if a person really knew their music history, they wouldn't be making that silly rockist notion and have it floating out there in the first GD place. So yeah, I mean, he pretty much walked into it even going there. But I really do think it was from a place of like, we don't think this will play in Peoria, as Earl O'Farrell Hutchinson would like to say. We don't think the people in Mississippi, the rednecks over in Alabama and in the Ozarks, want to read about these people. They rather read about Creedence Clearwater Revival or Allman Brothers or somebody. And,
Jefferson Airplane.
Yeah, exactly. And that in and of itself, and it wasn't to put the whole thing on R&B, but just the general wider color of rock and roll. And Little Richard and Chuck Berry too. Come on now. So yeah, in and of itself, it was a silly thing to do. And that's why we got what we got. But thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for the call. I appreciate you. When we come forward, of course, we're going to get into Aubrey from Danity Kane. She laid out what Diddy offered for those publishing rights. Would you sign an NDA to get your publishing back? We're going to talk about that. Of course, we're going to get into more trending topics and headlines. Before that point, I want to point out, it's very important for Forensic Accountant. He wants us to mention that Coates' aunt, this is Nicole Coates, going back to the story about one of the models that was discovered in downtown LA, said that she couldn't recognize her when she saw her niece and that one of her legs was up in the kick position, so she was definitely fighting. So just be diligent if you are in the LA area, be aware. If you know anything, drop a line to the LAPD and make sure that you check in with your people, especially if they're utilizing dating apps. So when we come forward, we're going to get into more trending topics and headlines. Like I said, we're going to talk about Tyler Perry. He wants y'all to settle. And by y'all, I mean black women. Not me. I'm excluding myself. Of course, we will talk about Aubrey O'Day. And we might get into a little bit of Offset and Cardi B and the drama that's surrounding them. And we want to talk about Stephen A. and Tara Owens. So all of that and more, you are locked into RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580. News and sports is up next.
Now we may not be skin brothers, but our blood runs the same color. Blood brothers, I think of blood brothers. We may not be the same color, blood brothers. That make us blood brothers. We may not be kin brothers, you and me. We may not be skin, come from the same tree. Our blood from the same.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Doug Davis with the latest from the Black Information Network. There are some upcoming court dates for the 5 former Memphis police officers charged with the beating death of Tyree Nichols following a traffic stop. Lawyers for 3 of the men told a judge